Hello and welcome to our session this afternoon. If you're on East Coast time, this is session number IC24, titled Implementation of a Personal Navigation System for Individuals with Disabilities, Barriers and Facilitators. My name is Clive D'Souza. I will serve as the moderator for the session. And at the end of the session, I will also share the CEU code in our chat window. Please remember to keep yourself on mute, at least for the duration of the presentation. You can turn on your mics at the very end when we get into our Q&A, the last 5 to 10 minutes. Please, you can also use the chat feature to post your questions during the presentation. I will now go ahead and turn it over to our presenter, Sarah Anderson. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. So yes, this talk is all about the implementation of a personal navigation system to facilitate independence and community mobility. And we're going to be surveying a variety of expert stakeholders who were involved within this project, as well as other iterations of this work to provide their feedback on a more global, large scale perspective. So with that said, okay, so this is our project team, the Mobility Assistance for Persons with Cognitive Disabilities project team. Myself, Dr. Sandra Metzler, who couldn't be here today, as well as Dr. Carmen DiGiovine, who also couldn't be here today, but feel free to also reach out to them if you want to learn more. And then these are our expert stakeholders as part of our presenter team, also who couldn't be here today. But you'll be hearing from each of them throughout the presentation. Andrew Wolpert, Claire Jennings, and Shaleea, who work through different aspects and different organizations involved in this work, including the City of Columbus, the Central Ohio Transportation Authority, as well as organizations in Pittsburgh. And our additional collaborators who helped us so much with the on-the-ground research. So first off, we would love to thank our funders, without whom this work wouldn't be possible. So thank you so much to the Smart Columbus Initiative, CODA, AbleLink Smart Living Technologies, and The Ohio State University. For those who've seen the syllabus, these are the same objectives that are there. So just to reiterate, this presentation will understand how implementation science can apply to the use of technologies and education programs and communities to facilitate community mobility. Understand how community mobility relates to navigation, transportation, and access to those with cognitive deficits, and identifying 3 facilitators and 3 barriers to the implementation of a personal navigation system in a mid-sized city. So to address these objectives, this is our outline for the talk. We'll start off with an overview of the project and the technology we'll be discussing. Then we'll move on into the expert stakeholder interviews, so you'll get to hear from each of them. Then we'll be presenting a section about looking ahead and seeing what's next to come for transportation and technology. Lastly, we'll end with some additional information and finally questions at the end. So a bit on overview of this project. The main issue that we've been decided to face head on was really how can we make transportation in the community more accessible to those with disabilities. We know that individuals with disabilities experience increasing difficulty accessing public transportation and community resources and services due to a lack of safe and effective mobility. So there really is a great need for accessible transportation for these people. And this is vital to promoting their health, well-being, employment opportunities, really anything you can think of, and just making them feel more included and active in our communities. So assistive technology can easily be one solution to addressing the problem of inaccessible transportation. And assistive technology, as I'm sure I don't have to tell you, really exists where as services, devices, strategies, and practices to improve or maintain functional capabilities of those with disabilities. And assistive technology, I'm also not going to go in depth into the theory here, but it consists of multiple contexts that interact with each other. You have the human component, so the person with a disability who maybe needs to travel, the activity being the use of public transit and traveling in their community. the assistive technology, which is the Wayfinder app that we'll be talking about in this presentation, and then the overall context that this exists in. So like, where do they live? What kinds of cultural, societal things are affecting them? So to contextualize what we've been speaking about regarding accessible transportation, this project is one small part of the Smart City initiative that Columbus took on, which was really had the lofty goal and ideal of innovating cities through multiple different avenues. And the one that we're really looking at is transportation. So Columbus in 2016 received a $40 million grant through the Smart City Challenge in the U.S. Department of Transportation, which funded the Smart Columbus initiative. And this initiative led to the identification of several transportation projects, one of which was the Mobility Assistance Project. If you're curious to learn more about Smart Columbus, you can visit the links at the bottom of this slide. And I believe they're also on the handouts as well. So this initiative was, well, our project, the Mobility Assistance Project, really had the goal of identifying a personal navigation app to assist people in improving independence in their transportation in the community. And this app would work with these individuals, be customized to their needs, and work within the Central Ohio Transportation Agency, our public bus system, to get them where they needed to go. So I'm not going to go into the details of the app, and you'll hear a little bit more about it as I show videos later on. But really it consists of three main components: the route builder and library. And this is where individuals or providers can create routes that these travelers could use and travel on as they go throughout their journeys in the community. And the library will store these routes so that they can access them later. And these routes can be customized to their needs with various visual and auditory cues, personalized photographs, and voiceovers. Next, you have the app. This is the application on the phone that they carry with them, and it gives them step-by-step instructions as they go throughout their journey and is able to pinpoint where on the route they are through multiple waypoints. And then lastly, the travel manager, and this feature allows a care provider or another individual to track the traveler as they're going throughout their route in real time. So through these main components, we're able to provide an assistive technology resource for individuals with cognitive disability. But it wasn't just the ability to give them the app and say, here you go. We had to also develop and provide a training program so they understood how to navigate in their community, how to use the bus, and how to use the app within contexts. So this training program included 4 primary components: the safety training, which mostly spoke about strangers, pedestrian rights of way, signs, things like that. Public transportation training, which of course was about how to use the bus. And this included visiting the Central Ohio Transit Authority, COTA's real live bus simulation room that we'll hopefully be seeing more of throughout the presentation and hear more about. The smartphone training, so if they don't have experience on using a smartphone, training them how to use it. And finally, the Wayfinder app training, which trained them how to use the Wayfinder app to navigate on their phone. So for those who've seen the syllabus, when you get a chance to check it out, we're not going to go in this talk very much into the implementation science frameworks that were heavily talked about in the syllabus to be able to feature our speakers more. But just as a little bit of a connection, here's a slide showing that replicating affecting programs framework, the implementation science framework, and the red boxes around preconditions and pre-implementation demonstrate where this mobility assistance program fell within this continuum of understanding the scope and process of how something is implemented and what the different steps are. So as you can see, we're in the very early stages of the implementation process, really just identifying needs, training people up, and learning a lot about what worked and what didn't work. And you'll hear much more about that as we go throughout the presentation. But I encourage you to check out the syllabus to read up more about this framework in particular. And also just to orient you to our timeline, again, pulling back to the syllabus, this project started in 2016 and ended in 2020. And you can see from the blue dots towards the first half of the timeline to the orange dots towards the end those are our 2 phases of preconditions and pre-implementation, and all the different activities and time points that encompass. So now we're going to move into our stakeholder interviews, and you're going to hear from them one at a time. The first up is Andrew Wolpert. Andy is with the City of Columbus, and he served as the Deputy Program Manager for Smart Columbus. He's leading projects designed to improve mobility by providing transportation systems that are reliable, create independence, and allow access to alternative modes of transportation. Prior to joining the city, Andy served as a senior technologist for CH2M, in which he led transportation projects across the country, including serving as a roadway lead on the $200 million I-71, I-670 design build in Columbus, and project manager for the I-270 US 33 interchange project in Dublin, Ohio. He received his BCSE from Ohio Northern and his MCSE from the Ohio State University. So a bit of introduction from Andy.
Sure. My name is Andy Wolpert. I'm with the City of Columbus. I was the Deputy Program Manager for the Smart Columbus program. My background's in civil engineering, transportation engineering. So before I started the city, I was in the design and construction and safety for highways and freeways, and transitioned to the city to work on the Smart Columbus program. And with this, we've tried to see how technology can provide safer, more reliable transportation for our residents in the city of Columbus.
So what was Smart Columbus and what was your role?
Yes, so as far as the program goes, we were awarded $40 million from the United States Department of Transportation back in August of 2016, and really got rolling in 2017 with the program, I guess you could say, where we initially had 14 or 15 projects, and we whittled that down to 8 projects as we went forward, based upon stakeholder feedback, engaging the community and prioritizing projects. So during the program, I served as a Deputy Program Manager, which really oversaw the day-to-day operations of all of our 8 projects that we were performing for the US DOT. And then I also managed 3 or 4 of the projects. So responsible for the delivery of multiple projects, including the mobility assistance project.
What was the goal of the mobility assistance project?
Yes, so initially, when we started with this in late 2016, early 2017, I think one of the drivers was obviously trying to provide reliable, equitable transportation for all of our residents. And for the MAPCD project, one of our focuses was, well, this could also help with that reliability, but also drive down costs for paratransit, hopefully. The Central Ohio Transit Authority is our transit agency here in Central Ohio. And paratransit costs continue.
Okay, I've heard there's
up and up as
I've seen there's a bit of a lag in the video. Please let me know if it becomes a bigger concern, and I'll try to move around that as possible. So I'm gonna pause it and then try to restart it. Let me know if it persists and if it prevents you from understanding the video.
As demand increases, and with paratransit costs, service can be a challenge too. We have to schedule a ride typically 48 hours in advance, and so well, we thought if we implement this project, we could maybe have some of the paratransit users make a transition.
Okay, good now. Sorry, I'll stop pausing. I'm going to shut off my video too, because that may help improve the quality.
To fixed bus route service by using this application that was developed by AbleLink Technologies that we use for mobility assistance project that could help people gain that mobility independence.
So what stood out about the Wayfinder system to you?
Yes. With thanks to Ohio State University and Carmen, your team, we were able to perform some testing over the summer of 2017, 2018, evaluating applications, and the Able Link Wayfinder app was one of those applications. And I think one of the things that, well, actually multiple things that we really thought was beneficial, and the feedback we got from the testers was very beneficial, was how you could customize the application to meet the individual needs of the users. And so you could use text, you could use audio, you could use pictures, all to communicate how to take a route, get onto a bus, get off the bus. And so I think that was really beneficial from our testers, having that flexibility that whatever type of queue they really wanted to see as part of the trip plan, you could provide and focus on that.
What were the opportunities and barriers in this project?
Well, I think as we got into the testing and we had more and more engagement with the stakeholders, whether it be CODA or potential users or businesses or organizations to support those with cognitive disabilities, our first real assumption is, wow, we can really drive down costs for paratransit. Really wasn't the case. You know, when we were recruiting to get participants for this project, we weren't able to get any existing paratransit users to participate. And so I think we learned that changing behavior is really challenging. And so we really began to focus more on, okay, let's try to encourage this mobility independence. And so people that, you know, maybe have used CODA in the past or wanted to use CODA, but just didn't because they felt uncomfortable, you know, recruiting people that fit into those needs. And we were able to get participants for the study based upon that perspective of helping people just gain more mobility independence, because we found that paratransit, you know, direct A to B type of delivery service, transportation is hard to beat, even though there are some challenges with that, and you know, you lose that independence. So we really focus on those that were close to that independence, get them over to the top. And then once we got into it, I think one of the main things we found was training for using a smartphone. Using the application itself is very, very time consuming. And the Ohio State team did a fantastic job of developing a very robust training program. And in coordination with Central Ohio Transit Authority, using their facilities to help with that training was really a huge asset as part of this program. And so, you know, with the training you developed, it will help other cities, agencies use this application in the future. It lays out really a step-by-step plan of what you really need to do and what you need to focus on to help people grasp, understand, and execute with the application. And I think as we got into it, you know, we found that some people got really comfortable and it really helped them in navigating, and they didn't have to use the app anymore because they got more and more comfortable with traveling with CODA. They understood, oh, this is where I'm going to get off, this is where I need to go. So the use of the application for some people didn't become necessary anymore. It was kind of that training tool to get them to that complete independence.
So what's around the corner?
So we're thinking, you know, 15, 20 years out right now, but where I really see the ability to gain that mobility independence for those disabilities is through autonomous vehicles. We had a autonomous vehicle deployment here in the city of Columbus as part of Smart Columbus, where we had a shuttle that would move passengers around the city. on a fixed route. Then due to COVID, we stopped passenger service, and we actually started moving food from a food bank to the neighborhood. So that was a different use case. But the ability for autonomous vehicles to help move those with disabilities, I think, is going to be very critical in the future to gain that mobility independence. And as we found from this pilot we had in Columbus for autonomous vehicles, we're a ways off from the technology being out there in the field on a day-to-day basis and people feeling comfortable. But eventually we'll get to that point. And I know I've talked to people who have kids that have disabilities, whether it be vision, being blind, or having some type of physical impairment. They can't wait for autonomous vehicles because that will help their child someday, when they're an adult, get around freely. So I think that's really a cool technology that will be coming our way. The other thing that I've seen a little bit about is that augmented reality, where that could possibly help people gain comfort, understanding and navigating when they get into the real world situation.
Anything else that you'd like to add?
From a national perspective, the infrastructure bill was passed, bipartisan infrastructure bill, and so there's going to be a lot of funding, coming towards states and cities in particular. There's talk of like another smart city type of challenge, and so there's going to be opportunities for government organizations, other agencies, nonprofits to get involved and start thinking of your ideas. Identify your issues now. What are your use cases? Start talking to stakeholders right now, because it takes time, as we know, to vet through all those stakeholders and really get to the heart of the issue and what do we need, what's the problem we need to solve. So I would recommend having, if you're not having those discussions, really start having those conversations now, because there's going to be a lot of opportunities over the next 5-10 years to really deploy technologies within areas to help not only those with disabilities, but all your residents.
All right. So that was Andy that you heard from, and hopefully the video was going okay for the latter half. So our next expert stakeholder who we interviewed for this presentation was Jennings, who is the Mobility Program Manager in Mobility Services at COTA, the Central Ohio Transit Authority. She's been working in transportation for more than 10 years, with the last 2 years spent managing COTA's travel training program. She has a master's degree in city and regional planning from the Ohio State University. So now I will show you her video as well. And again, let me know if there are issues. So introduction.
Sure. I am the Mobility Program Manager in our Mobility Services Department at COTA. That is the department that deals with our ADA transportation program, which we call COTA Mainstream. I oversee our travel training program, so I do a lot with helping people learn how to use the COTA system. And that's not just our ADA system, but that's all of our systems here at COTA. So I do a lot of outreach related to how to use COTA and how to use transit and how to figure out how to get around Central Ohio.
So what brought you to COTA?
So my background is in transportation planning. I spent over 8 years at the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission working on a variety of transportation planning stuff, from active transportation and walking and pedestrians and bicycling to I ended up working in transit, overseeing a grant from the FTA.
So what was COTA's involvement with the Mobility Assistance Project?
Yeah, so I joined, when I joined COTA, things were already in swing with Wayfinder and Smart Columbus, but I joined and sort of was the liaison for COTA and what was going on with Wayfinder in the city. It turned out that our constituents who use COTA Mainstream weren't the same people that they tend to use our ADA service, so they don't use our fixed route. So it turned out that they weren't the best population to reach out to use Wayfinder, since Wayfinder deals specifically with fixed route transit. But we were very happy to discuss, like, that is it's a tool in our toolbox, in terms of, like, that's an application that's available for people. So it's something that, as far as like travel training, is great for me to know about and to be able to talk about to other people who might be interested in learning how to use CODA if they have any cognitive issues, that are still able to ride fixed route. So
What is new with CODA Mainstream?
well, in 2019, we started a pilot program for called Mainstream on Demand. So our ADA system, our ADA program is called CODA Mainstream. We saw that there were a lot. So just to go back, our CODA Mainstream is our ADA service. It is what is required by the ADA laws. Like it is limited because it's shared ride. You have to be so close. You have to be within 3/4 of a mile of a bus stop, both the beginning of your ride and the end of your ride. So there's a lot of limitations to that. And we didn't have to provide any services beyond that ADA requirement. So, but we did, and there was growing requests for more non-ADA trips. So that's what, it's still for people with disabilities, but they're called non-ADA trips because it's beyond the ADA requirements. I think it's a little confusing nomenclature, but that is what it is. So we saw that there was a growing need for non-ADA trips, and we couldn't provide it on our mainstream program. So we decided to try out an on-demand system that would be able to provide both rides for people that had that were able to walk on their own, and also with people with mobility devices. So we partnered with an organization called UServe, and it worked really well. We were able to provide a lot more non-ADA trips than we were before, but it was at a slightly premium cost compared with our regular ADA system. Well, during COVID, we went fare free. Like a lot of transit agencies throughout the US, we got rid of our fares for a long period of time. And that included all of our services, including our mainstream program. So both mainstream and mainstream on demand. And turned out that our mainstream on demand, which had just become its own, non-pilot but regular program, took off because it was a private ride. And it was a premium cost before, but now it was free. And it turns out that our partner could really handle the boost in productivity. So like they could handle the amount of rides, even though it sort of skyrocketed. So that was something where it's like, oh, well, we can potentially expand this service to our customers. So it's something that we are looking into to see if there's a way that we can make that more available for our customers. We just transitioned service providers for our mainstream, our core service. So we are working through some changes, like just some adjustments at the beginning of this year as we're transitioning. But it's possible throughout, later in 2022, we might be able to do more with our on-demand system. So it's really exciting. We're able to reach more people and get people more places in the county. So it's exciting.
And then what should we keep an eye on for the future?
Well, I think on-demand is something that will be continued to grow in different ways. We also have some on-demand zones within Franklin County that aren't related to mainstream, so anyone can use it in the cities of Grove City and Westerville and on the south side of Columbus. And we have another on-demand bus line, bus area in the northeast part of the county as well. And that's bus stop to bus. You have to be at a bus stop, but an actual full-size bus comes to you. So I think that's going to continue to grow. I think that, getting people to jobs is always something that is hard. And I think COVID has made everything hard, but I think it has shown how difficult transportation is for a lot of people. And it's really expensive for a lot of people. And I think it just shows the need for supporting things to help people get to and from their home and their job, or their home and their school. especially for non-emergency medical trips. Like, I just think that I don't know if there's anything specifically new that hasn't emerged yet, but I think that this on-demand stuff is still emerging. I think that mobile payment stuff is emerging. You know, in October of 2020, we transitioned to an online app payment system, partnering with the transit app and Masabi to allow people to digitize cash to pay for their fares. I think that's going to be something that's continuing to emerge in transit. And with that, we are able to implement something called fare capping. So it's basically, if you're using the app or a smart card, we know how much you ride. You're never going to pay more than a day rate, like a day pass rate. And if you get to our monthly rate in any given month, you're never going to pay more than a monthly pass. So we're making sure that we're using technology so that our riders are always getting the best value for their rides. And we're trying to reach people in different ways. So I think that those things are still going to continue to evolve. So technology is, we're still looking at different ways that we can reach our customers or our potential customers with technology. So I think all of that is still emerging and changing. And I think that we'll see more of that as well.
Right. So that was our talk with Claire. And last up is our interview with Shaleea Shields. Shaleea is currently serving as the CEO of Lumicare, which is a company recently created focused on the implementation of technology solutions for individuals with IDD, autism, and more. Previously, she held the position of IDD Innovation Manager at Meraki, a developmental behavioral health and education nonprofit provider offering individual and community-based services based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So the video interview with Shaleea. Introduction.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I spent my entire career up until last year in the human services nonprofit sector and spent a lot of that time in different positions in operations. But the last 10 years of my career was focused on technology initiatives within the large organization that I worked for in the IDD division. And so from doing that, we were able to learn a lot of helpful information about what makes technology successful for that population and all of the things that really detract from that. So I was really excited to be able to start a company this past year in April 2021 called Lumicare that focuses specifically on technology solutions for people in the ID space, people with mental health issues, people in the aging population, so that we could apply some of that knowledge and help people have sustainable success with different types of technologies.
So how did Meraki connect with AbleLink?
Sure. When I was with Meraki and I worked in the ID division, we had a long relationship with Dan Davies and AbleLink Smart Living Technologies. We had started working with them, I believe in like 2014, 2013, and done several projects that since have become program in the division there, and really enjoyed working with their team, but also really enjoyed the outcomes that our individuals that we support were able to see very quickly from a lot of the offerings that they had. So they had approached us about their ATRI project that included Wayfinder, and we were very excited at that point in time to be able to participate in that and reach a lot of people in Meraki to be able to explore that side of transportation.
How did Meraki implement the Wayfinder system?
So I think it's always good to tell the story about how we got to that place, right? Because everything is a journey, and technology is no exception to that rule. I remember, like I said, we had a long-standing relationship with AbleLink, and there was a time years before we engaged in this project that I had talked to some of my colleagues. I remember we were in a room. We had just started using some of the different solutions that they have, and I brought up the Wayfinder. We talked a little bit about what that offering looked like, what the potential outcomes are, and we didn't at that time have enough technology success under our belt to have everyone feel comfortable with moving forward with something like that. It seemed too big, it seemed too risky, and it wasn't something that anybody in that room was very interested in proceeding with. So I thought it was so interesting whenever years later, Dan and company had approached us about this project and our participation in it. And I went into that room with the same group of colleagues, really excited to share this with them, but also had some trepidation about what the response would be. And it was so exciting because time had passed. We had had successes with technology projects. We had some comfort level with the implementation processes that we had, and everybody was all for it. There were so many ideas flying around and suggestions about participation. And I knew in that moment there was going to be a lot of work ahead of us, but I knew we were going to be successful just based on the reaction from the support system for everybody.
Who were the stakeholders that you worked with?
Yeah, so I think who you have in the room when you're planning something like this is always really important as well. And so these were colleagues that had worked on previous technology projects with me, directors, medical professionals, people from behavior supports, and people that work directly, which is the most important part, with some of the individuals. So we could get everybody's perspective. You know, before you even start a planning process like that, getting all of those different perspectives in the room and being able to gauge where they're at with technology, what their expectations are, what their fears are, kind of getting that out in the open is what really gets the process started for me. It's what got it started for Marikey each time we embarked on an initiative.
What were some successes?
Sure, absolutely. The successes are my favorite part. And I think success for each individual person that participates in something like this is very different. You know, we went in talking to everybody who was going to be a part of this, that, you know, we want people to be as independent as they can possibly be. And that looked different for different people. There were several individuals who had never used public transportation themselves before, who ended up very quickly becoming independent with the process. And that was very exciting to see. And not only being independent, but also how it opened their mindset to other things that are possible for them. We had an individual, her name is Sierra, and she, you know, again, utilized Wayfinder, very quickly became independent. But once she realized that she had this avenue of transportation that was outside of being reliant on a staff member or somebody else to get to where she needs to go when she needs to go, she started thinking about employment opportunities. She started thinking about her future, her interests, and Sierra had found a love of photography. And so she actually used her phone that she got through the Wayfinder project to start exploring that aspect of her interest. And she has a website, does photography, sells her beautiful pictures. And you know, that really, through that, she said she was really able to help her own mental health and wanted to use her photography to help other people. And I just think seeing her go through that process and knowing that something as simple as getting on public transportation can give somebody that type of outlook and perspective on their life really just shows that all of these technology solutions that are out there now, if they're explored correctly, can really change the trajectory of someone's life and what they feel they're able to do.
What were some challenges you experienced?
Sure. I think roadblocks are naturally there on the other side. You know, we can be as prepared as we can in regards to a technology piece, in regards to the person who's utilizing it, the support team around them, but that's not going to ever take away the barriers that remain on the other side. Sometimes education on the part of maybe the driver who's not used to having somebody with a disability utilizing their piece of transportation, and the tie-down system, and taking a pause to be able to assist somebody with that or give somebody directions. You know, I also think accessibility at bus stops and some of those things that we still have to work through with communities to make sure that no matter where somebody is at, that they're able to utilize a transportation bus stop or area just like everyone else.
What was Mariki's role?
I do. I will say the other thing that lends to success for something like this is that Mariki worked to have a dedicated innovation office within their IDD division. And I can't think of a more forward-thinking piece to add to a large company like that, because that allowed us to focus on all of these projects and initiatives and really be there as a support system for the staff who were helping the individuals and the individuals themselves. The more people feel supported, that they always have somewhere to go. If their hardware doesn't work correctly, their software doesn't work correctly, they have trepidation, they need questions answered, all of those things play into something sitting on the shelf or something becoming part of someone's life and being utilized regularly. And so knowing that they have the innovation office and that it's continuing and that it's growing, I think that lends to this program and some of the other technology initiatives that we had going on there continuing to be successful, over time.
Can you talk more about the Mariki Innovation Office?
Yeah.
The innovation office, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a little further. It's one step further than an IT technical support, because you really have to make sure that the folks who are in the innovation office have a complete idea of what the scope of a project is, what the goals of the project are, and they always keep that in mind when they're answering questions and supporting people. And in that way, Mariki is going to continue to be successful with technology.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just think if there's one takeaway that I had, especially from that project, is to go into something like that, using something like that if it's new for somebody, without expectation, right? Because I think sometimes the expectations really drag us down. Sometimes it's fear-based, and it's coming from a place of really not being able to explore the technology and what it can do for somebody fully because of that. And then also, I think sometimes placing expectations on how quickly someone's going to become accustomed to something. And all of those things are individual. And I think when we have kind of relinquished those fears and built a program that's structured, yet has a lot of room for people to be themselves and have their own time, we've seen a lot of success and always been surprised by the outcomes that we have because of that. So I think it's all about structure and kind of letting go of that fear and letting people be as successful as they can be.
All right, so that was our talk with Shaleea. Next, we're going to be moving into our second to last section, looking ahead. And this section really focuses on what are some new innovations on the horizon, what are people up to? So to summarize what was just said in the different interviews I showed you, changing existing behavior is challenging for pretty much everybody, but we found that some of our users or potential users just were not interested and they liked their current system. Training and implementing the technology is also challenging and time and resource intensive. It takes a lot of time, energy, and other resources to be able to provide training and then maintain the uptake of something in daily life. Human services organizations can be best suited to lead the implementation of a mobility assistance program like this with the support of a transit authority who can also provide resources. Wayfinder, an app like it, can be a good transition tool for those who are on the cusp of independence or looking to gain more independence. Technology and transportation can lead to improved opportunities and independence, which can change someone's life, as you heard from Shalea's story. Funding opportunities and innovations are growing for this area of community mobility. The infrastructure bill, like Andy mentioned, was one, as well as autonomous vehicles and other technologies. Expectation can be a limitation and barrier, like Shaleea said. I think we definitely had to change our expectations with this project and understand and broaden our perspective of what was success and what was helpful to learn. And then finally, built-in environment barriers. There's only so much that an app can help you with. Sometimes if the sidewalk isn't there, the person's not going to be able to get to the bus stop. So understanding those and making improvements in other contexts as well that can facilitate the uptake of a program like this. So I wanted to try to spend a couple minutes to share a video on Wayfinder, the Wayfinder application, and AbleLink's next steps.
There's several communities that people don't have transportation. They don't have their own cars. They don't have a way of getting around. So between our shuttle buses and our fixed route service, we're providing that service of helping people get to doctor's appointments or grocery stores or whatever they may need.
One of the real challenges that people with cognitive disabilities face is with respect to transportation. With Wayfinder, we created an application that allows individuals with intellectual disabilities who oftentimes are dependent upon others to travel from one place to another. They are able to now walk out their front door when they want to, head down to the bus stop, catch the bus, and go wherever they want.
The one thing about Wayfinder from a transportation part of it is that we can take individuals off of paratransit and put them on a fixed route service. You know, with paratransit, they have to call and schedule a ride. With a fixed route service, you just go to a bus stop. And with the fixed route service, that opens them up with more flexibility, more freedom. You're showing the community with these individuals that they can still do things. They have to do things a little differently than what most of us do, but they can still be part of a community. They can still contribute. They can still help. We're the first public transportation to take this on and work with an organization to promote this.
AbleLinks contacted the Tennessee Department of Intellectual Disabilities Enabling Technology Department and expressed their interest in initiating a pilot program in the state of Tennessee. The Chattanooga area was selected, and from there, AbleLinks, DIDD, Orange Grove Center, and our Chattanooga Transit System began to collaborate and implement the travel training project. The project program started in July of 2019, with various phases of the program being implemented each month. Orange Grove Center selected 5 individuals we support that we felt would be good candidates to participate in this unique opportunity. I enjoy working with individuals with developmental disabilities, either teaching them skills in employment or academic skills in the classroom. We serve approximately 1,000 individuals on a daily basis. We were really excited about the possibility of promoting independence and community travel.
Wayfinder is not just a set of travel instructions, it's a support environment for the individuals.
It's more unique training to each of the individuals as their routes are all unique now, going to and from work.
A lot of the cloud technologies that we have now provide peace of mind for a family member, a travel trainer, to know where the individual is, that they're interacting with the device. If they've requested assistance through the device, they'll know that immediately. It's a whole ecosystem that includes an app, routes that are created that are personalized for that individual with step-by-step instructions and pictures based upon their particular needs.
You're building their confidence, you're giving them pride, you're giving them, a sense of belonging and a sense of normalization, being normal just like everyone else. That's a lot for somebody to say that I can do this.
My oldest brother, John, was born with intellectual disabilities and some physical disabilities. So having grown up in a family that deals with those challenges led me towards trying to find ways to use technology to better the lives of folks with disabilities.
You're just doing so much for just one person.
One in particular is a gentleman who did not ride the bus at all. He was completely dependent upon staff to pick him up, take him to work. When he had the opportunity to use the Wayfinder system, he was a little scared at first, but after just 2 or 3 uses of Wayfinder, he told the staff they didn't need to ride the bus with him anymore. He could head to work on his own. He was so excited about the ability to have that freedom. He got a hold of the transit agency's schedule, and after about 3 or 4 months of using Wayfinder, he handed that back to the staff and said, I don't need this anymore.
This is something that should be implemented everywhere. For a part of the community that a lot of times is forgotten about or kept behind closed doors, we need this.
If nothing else, it's a direct hands-on learning experience where you're using the Wayfinder app throughout the entire bus route. You're moving more and more towards total independence and community travel.
From a personal aspect, I have a son with special needs. And I think that's another thing that makes me so passionate about this program, because from a parent's aspect, I get it, I understand. You want to make them part of a community. And this is just another way that you're giving parents an opportunity to do that for their loved ones.
Okay, so that was a video on 8 Wayfinders, newer initiatives in other communities. And before my very last bit, I just wanted to reiterate that it's not just the technology aspect that's important. The training is really important as well. And I just wanted to show a quick video to highlight CODA's really great bus simulation that they have available at their center. And this is a video we took for our training purposes for individuals with the project.
To get to the nearest CODA bus stop, make sure you cross the street safely by waiting for the white walking man and crossing at a crosswalk. Sit on the bench at the bus stop to wait for the CODA bus, or if there is no bench, wait underneath the sign for the bus. Make sure you are dressed appropriately for the bus, like if it is a warm day, wear a t-shirt and shorts. Your bus will be clearly marked in the front of the bus and on the side of the bus with where the bus is going to and the bus number. When boarding the bus, if you need assistance, you can ask the bus driver to pull down a ramp to make it easier to get onto the bus. When you get onto the bus, swipe or insert your bus pass to pay for your ride.
She didn't stay long once I got in.
Oh yeah, but she was really nice. I'm just kidding around away from the
If you are unsure of where to get off the bus at or need extra help, you can hand the bus driver an index card describing where you want to get off at and they can help you. For your safety, be sure to pay attention to your surroundings while riding the CODA bus. When you are about to reach your stop, pull the yellow cord to signal that the bus needs to stop. Once the bus has safely stopped at your stop, you may exit the bus.
All right, so that was just a really brief video kind of showing what CODA has available as part of their training. But one thing that I really want to emphasize is that not every community has such a wonderful training facility available to them. Not every individual is able to make it out to a cool simulation space to practice these activities safely before going on real routes in the community. So there are definitely opportunities to innovate, not just the mobility assistance when someone's on a route in the community, but also the training that they receive to learn how to use the bus and walk around their community safely before getting to that point. So I'll just put in a little plug here for where my interests lie and where my personal direction is going. Virtual reality is a really cool technology. As Andy mentioned, augmented reality, both of these can easily be used to simulate challenging situations or potentially dangerous situations to train risk assessment, problem solving, emergency response for people on the job, just training specific tasks or activities. It's being used a lot with emergency medical responders, as well as construction workers and other people who operate heavier dangerous machinery. But there's really limited evidence and research on the use of virtual reality for bus travel training in particular. And any research that exists doesn't use the newer systems, such as the head-mounted displays you see the individual in the above picture wearing. So there really is a great space and great opportunity to be able to deliver more immersive, realistic, and responsive training, simulated bus training to those who might not be able to access really state-of-the-art facilities. And this kind of training might not be appropriate for everybody, but we definitely feel that it could be a great way to engage individuals with disabilities into wanting to learn how to use the bus and being able to do so successfully. So the bottom image is just a bit of a still of a project I'm currently working on developing for my own dissertation research of the VR program that I have in development. So if anyone is interested in speaking more about that, feel free to reach out to me, as I still have a lot of work left to do, but it's an exciting new world out there. And we are going to be wrapping up this presentation, and I'll put my video back on as well, with just some last additional information. So all this information should be available on the FAQ handout we have for you on the website. Just wanting to highlight that AbleLink was one of the finalists and accepted for the Department of Transportation Inclusive Design Challenge. So you can learn more about that here. And also feel free to visit our websites and follow us on Twitter. Here are our references, and I am happy to take questions if there are any.
Hi, you're welcome to post your questions in the chat window, or you can turn on your microphone as well as just speak out your question. That works as well.
Oh, thank you. Okay, how are nonprofits funding innovation offices by Aaron Rogers? That's an excellent question. And to be honest, I'm not one of the people who was particularly involved within the daily structure and ongoings of the nonprofits that we worked with. So I don't have the correct answer to your question, unfortunately, but Shaleea Shields, who I featured here, might be a really good resource to reach out to. And if you would like any help getting put in contact with her, just feel free to reach out to me, send me an email, and I'd be happy to do any introductions.
While we wait for our next question, given that it's only a couple of minutes left, I will also share with you the CEU code for this session, and it is in the window XA1090. That's X-ray Alpha 1 Oscar 90.
Okay, a question from Lenice. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. You may have mentioned, but how much users do you currently have for the Wayfinder app? Oh, that's a great question, and I did not mention. So I can't speak to the different communities that AbleLink's a part of because they're doing work in Cuyahoga County. They've done work in Pittsburgh and now Chattanooga and other places throughout the country. But for our project here in Columbus, I believe we enrolled a total of 36 people. Granted, not all of them stayed throughout the whole length of the program. We did have attrition at various times, such as before the trainings and then after the training. So not all individuals maintained the technology and the use of the bus throughout the span of the year-long project. But yeah, it was quite a decent amount of people actually, which was wonderful to get all sorts of different feedback. And people with different varying levels of support too. Some were able to use the app and bus independently, and some really needed the help of a care provider or support staff to facilitate their travel. So we got to work with both individuals and their care providers, which was really wonderful. Any other questions? And I want to, if I don't get the chance before this presentation ends, I want to thank everybody for coming too. This was really wonderful to share our work with you, and I'm sure other presenters would have been happy to be here as well. But if you're interested in how a Wayfinder and a program like this can be implemented in your own communities, I would definitely check out the resources I shared, reach out to a Wayfinder, talk with your organizations. This could be a great resource for individuals as well as for organizations and communities.
Sarah, thank you once again for this wonderful, informative presentation. Thank you all for your attending this session in the afternoon. Once again, your CEU code, it is X-ray Alpha 1 Oscar 90. It's also in your chat window. If we don't have any other questions, I think we could end the session. Thank you once again. I hope you enjoy the rest of your symposium.
Thank you. Enjoy.
We just have to stop the recording.